Hello, everyone, and welcome to our latest DZone webinar. My name is Jason Cockrum, and I'm the Community Engagement Manager here at DZone, and we're glad you're here. We've got a really relevant and exciting topic today, and so we're happy you're here. If you're new to DZone, we are one of the world's largest online communities of software developers and experts. We publish all sorts of knowledge resources for developers and anyone involved in software development. We've got everything from ref cards and trend reports to thousands of articles written and published by our community. And this all makes us the go-to knowledge hub for software developers all over the world. Today, we're going to be talking about a topic that is extremely relevant and important for developers everywhere, and that is testing. We're all under increasing pressure to deliver software faster, to deliver better software faster. And oftentimes, testing, unfortunately, becomes one of those things that becomes rushed or done incorrectly or even skipped entirely in some cases in an effort to meet sprint deadlines. A big reason for this is because manual testing is tedious and time consuming. So QA teams and anyone else involved in testing is often forced to just do the bare minimum, to get the project across the finish line. But the good news is that nature of testing also makes it a prime candidate for automation. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. Avo Automation is built from the ground up to help developers and QA teams improve the speed and quality of testing to get projects deployed faster and safer. We're joined today by Annalisa Camarillo. She's a Senior Vice President and the CMO of Avo Automation, along with Vidar Amin. He's the CEO of Avo, and Push Marish. He's a Director of Sales for Avo. We're going to spend some time talking about how automated testing revolutionizes testing for developers and the benefits of using a platform like Avo. Towards the end, I'm going to come back in and answer some questions. And just to let you know, remind you, DZone is all about community. And so we encourage you to get involved and get engaged in the conversation. On the right side of your screen, you'll see a little box where you can chat with other attendees. You can talk about your experiences with testing and the benefits and the challenges that you have with testing. You can also submit questions to the panelists, and we'll do our best to answer as many of them as we can towards the end. So I'm going to quickly go over our agenda for today. Once I'm done talking, Annalisa is going to give you a brief overview of Avo and who they are and what they do and that kind of stuff. And then we've got a poll question. That's right, we're going to quiz the audience. So you'll have a chance to get involved and to participate with what we're talking about today. And then after that, Vidar is actually going to walk us through a case study and an example of how one of their customers saw tremendous benefits from using Avo. And so that'll be really exciting. And then finally, Push is going to give us a demo. So we're actually going to be able to see how this software works for ourselves, which is really exciting. And then, like I said earlier, at the very end, we're going to go over a couple of questions if anybody has anything that they want to ask, and then we're going to call it a day. So at this point, I'm going to hand it over to Annalisa. Annalisa, floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jason, and welcome to all of our attendees. So happy to have you here. I'm very excited to give you an update on how we've enhanced our test automation platform. We've got a lot of details to share, and we're really excited to show you what test automation looks like, what great test automation looks like. And this is all based on how our customers are using our products today. So let's get started. I thought the most important thing to do to just set some context for you is to share some data. So don't take it from us. Take it from the users, practitioners, and customers themselves. What you're seeing here is the latest data from the World Quality Report. And there's three things I want to point out for you. First, note that business assurance is considered #1 as the most important objective for quality and testing. This means quality assurance is on the CEO's radar. Companies want to maintain improved quality and efficiency of their business processes, and they want to, second to that, ensure that there is a quality user experience and that users are satisfied with how they experience your company, the business. So my last point is that the business-related objectives have risen to the top, right? So the two first, business assurance and user experience, they're neck and neck at 49%. And even though things like defect detection is still important, it has sort of moved to the bottom, right? And so what's important to note here is that the business is watching and listening, right? And this is why we believe automation can enable that change quickly. And so that's where Avo comes in. There's a few distinct reasons companies choose to do business with Avo. One, just going to point out a couple, is that we've risen to the top of the leaderboard for enterprise test automation at least twice this year. And that's because clients continue to rate us 5 stars. Second, our products are compatible and integrate with each other. So there's nothing better than being able to work with a provider of technology whose products all work together and they continue to grow that way into the roadmap. And that's what we provide you. So test data management works together with test automation, with other capabilities like service virtualization, so on and so forth. And there's so much more we're bringing to the table. If you stay tuned when we start to release new functionality in our roadmap. 3, we're known to deliver the lowest TCO in the industry, and that's by analyst standards. And so on that point, let's see what the analysts say. So I won't spend too much time going through the details here because I'm excited for you to hear one of our case studies and to see the demo. But we are very happy to announce that we've just been featured for a second time in Gartner's top providers of AI augmented testing products. And that report will hit your inbox soon. So Avo will be sending you a copy of that report so you can take a look and see how we've been rated, how the different providers of AI augmented testing have been rated. The rest speaks for itself, so I'll keep moving because I want to get us to the case study. To give you the bigger picture, because I think this context is important as we start to talk through, excuse me, how customers benefit, is that we cover software testing in 3 areas. Automated software testing, the main component of automating software testing, test data management, and service virtualization. There's a whole lot of capability behind this, but what I think is most important is how you benefit. Avo empowers your business with some unique benefits, and I'll just point out a couple. Number 1, we can test end-to-end business processes. So naturally, when there is a business process, there's multiple application touch points. You want to be able to test all of those touch points so that you can do what rose to the top of the CEO's agenda, if you will, for quality, which is ensuring the whole business process, that it works, right? And so we can deliver that. Number 2, we're going to show you autonomous test creation. And autonomous test creation is important. Why? Because it speeds up the process of testing, it ensures quality, and it ensures that you're delivering a good product back into the market. We're happy to show you that. Lastly, because maintainability of testing becomes problematic as you start to introduce more capability, as you start to move faster, and even more importantly, as you start to become a more strategic contributor to the business, we also offer self-healing tests that are reusable, and that's super cool to be able to rely on the automation to do some of the self-healing wherever tests are, when you capture defects and things like that. Before we go any further, I think it's super important that we hear from you. So Jason, back to you for the polling question.
All right. Thank you, Annalisa. So as you can see, we got a question up on the screen, and we want to know what your primary challenges are when testing cloud applications. Basically, how this is going to work, we're going to give you 60 seconds. Some multiple choice answers are going to pop up on the screen. Feel free to select the answer that you prefer, and then we'll go over the answers after the minute. So we'll go ahead and start the poll now. And you got 60 seconds. looking at these answers, it's struck me it's entirely possible that there's might even be some additional challenges here that we haven't covered. So if you do have any other challenges that you're facing when testing cloud applications, be sure to throw those in the chat and let us know, and we might be able to get to those at the end. So. All right. Oh man, good responses. Okay. So it looks like we all have some challenges when testing cloud applications, which is good. Okay, well, not good for us, but good that we're going to be able to talk about how we can solve some of those challenges. So, all right, now what we might be able to do is have Vitter kind of walk us through how one of their customers actually solved for a lot of these challenges. So Vitter, I'm going to let you take it from here and tell us a little bit more about your customer.
Thank you, Jason. I appreciate it. And nice to be with all of you today. First off, I'm going to give you a little bit of background. So this is a fairly large manufacturing client headquartered in the US, but they have a global presence essentially on all the major continents. And given their history in discrete manufacturing, they have been around for, over 50, 60 years. And thereby a lot of their technology has been essentially built from the ground up, right? So think mainframes, COBOL technology, powering a lot of some of their business critical applications, but all the way up to their next generation cloud migration SaaS offering tech stack, right, which is powered through the web. And one of the things that the client really wanted to focus on as they embraced digital was figure out a way to actually align their business objectives with their digital initiatives. And as they started to do this, they realized their bottlenecks were coming in the delivery lifecycle, specifically in testing. Going back to kind of what Lisa had mentioned a little bit earlier, quality is a fairly high topic now within an executive suite. And typically, if businesses are investing, tens, even hundreds of millions of dollars into a digital program, they do expect that those programs are successfully executed and that investment in quality and automated testing becomes a fairly important topic, especially for organizations that are maturing and really starting to dive into the details of a successful digital transformation. So I'm going to give you an example. One of the goals, right, or if you think of an overarching theme that they had, they wanted to focus on transforming the entire buyer journey or the buyer experience through technology. And if you think of the buyer journey in 3 stages, you have the research stage, and it's on the left, the business objectives, the research stage, right? So stage 1, you want to make sure that the client or the end user is able to understand what the business offers in a relatively seamless fashion. Typically now most of us get that information through the websites that these businesses offer, the product configurators that they have built into their website, so on and so forth. The next thing that they want to focus on once they've educated the client is modernize the sales process, right? So when you modernize the sales process, you want to ensure that you're using, up-to-date CRM software, so on and so forth. In this case, they were using Salesforce. The reality with Salesforce is, I'm sure many of you guys have noticed the complexity, but Salesforce being a cloud application, most of the time it's configured or customized for the end client. And every time a new upgrade is provided by Salesforce, the entire customized CRM would have to be retested. What was happening in the client side was upgrades led to custom errors popping up, and suddenly the sales process kept breaking down, right? And Salesforce was having a bunch of glitches, which required a need for the clients to invest in automation. Similarly, post-sale, they were powered through Oracle. And when you're powered through Oracle, the field support systems were powered through Oracle. They wanted to be able to customize the field support offerings for their clients. But again, every time they customized, they had large challenges in predictability of their Oracle system, because they didn't have enough time to thoroughly test their entire ERP system. So here are 3 distinct technologies, right? You have web, Salesforce powered through the web, but it's a packaged application, Salesforce Lightning to be specific, and Oracle, right? Now, when you look at the client's challenges, let's relate to what most of you in the testing community see on a daily basis, right? Agile delivery was happening for speed, but there was not enough time to test, which was leading to user deficiencies, poor experience that the clients were facing. Now, for most QA teams, this is not the fault of the QA team. It's the fault that your test windows are just too short, right? Similarly, when you're actually having systems like Salesforce, you want to make sure you have enough coverage. In this case, the coverage was fairly low, and think about the time to maintain the test cases. Some of you in the polling question had said maintainability was one of the bigger issues, right? They didn't have enough time to maintain the current automation that they had. So coverage actually started coming down over time. And finally, they had the inability to rapidly, automate across the tech stack because their team, with the current tool that they had, was able to use the product. The majority of them were able to use the product, but the product only supported primarily web-based applications. So they were really looking for a tool that could help them support their broad enterprise level needs, not just limited to web or mobile automation, right? So when you look at the client's reality and these challenges that they faced, it's very important for us to draw parallel on how we dissected the problem for the client and essentially solved each of their challenges, right? So going one by one, the first one we spoke about was short test windows, right? Short test windows were a byproduct of moving into an agile delivery model, and basically not testing enough was leading to glitchy experiences on their web applications, right? Avo Genius, which is a feature, it's just one of the features we're going to demo today. We don't have enough time to go through the whole product, but Avo Genius allows you to essentially rapidly automate workflows. It's a smart recorder. The second thing is you needed to have a UI in place traditionally in order to build automation, especially in your world of agile delivery, right? Our instant automation capabilities enables the user to very quickly automate their entire scenario without even having the UI in place. And thereby it allows modern delivery methodologies like agile. The second theme was, they didn't have enough time to maintain their test cases. And what this led to was often upgrades being pushed into production on Salesforce, the CRM. And again, their coverage was so low that they were not able to automatically detect the impact that those upgrades would have on their customized workflows. We take care of a lot of maintainability through self-healing, specifically at the UI layer. We have an element of self-healing to prevent tests from breaking automatically. And as an application goes through major version upgrades, we have a component which we call the Avo Upgrade Analyzer, which essentially allows a lot of automation that you've already built to be reused across major UI upgrades, right? Whether you're upgrading from, let's just say, Oracle EBS to an Oracle Cloud application, say R11 to R12 to then Oracle Cloud. The Upgrade Analyzer allows your tests to be reused across that entire upgrade journey. The third thing in the QA team's struggles were a limited amount of tech support, right? So like I said earlier, they were using a Selenium-based approach prior to Avo, and that was essentially allowing their team to automate, but it could only limit the automation to a web or a mobile driven approach. With the Avo platform, we gave them computer vision, which allows them to essentially automate across the lifecycle. So they could automate over 150 different technologies. And we made sure that they were able to do it with not just their functional team or their testing team, but also their functional business users, all powered through a relatively seamless no-code platform. I'm tying all of this back, right? So once we'd worked with the client over the course of 12 months, I want to go back to the business objectives, because often businesses overlook the impact QA has on the core business objective. So let's look at the business objectives one more time. Smooth digital learning experience through the web. In the past, they were having a high level of defects in production. It was about 8%. Through automation at scale, they were able to essentially get their defect production rate under 1.5%. Similarly, as they were going ahead and transforming their sales process through Salesforce, we ensured that their entire CRM had at least 80% automated test coverage. Again, that allowed them to take in upgrades and make sure that the CRM process was fundamentally powered, in an efficient manner with minimal defects. And finally, they wanted to be able to upgrade or tweak their Oracle instances to allow for what the market was demanding. So as you're a field service technician, you may have a reality that, hey, the client wants the ability to order new parts during that direct meeting. That would require a certain customization to their Oracle ERP system. In order to quickly make that change in the market, you need to have the ability to make a change and then automatically have coverage and automated testing for it, right? And that allows them to essentially make their business 3 times faster in terms of what they can push to production. All of this power through testing is what allows a business, especially a business today moving in the world of agile, to meet their business objectives with the power of technology in a seamless manner, right? Today's demo, I'm going to hand it over to Push shortly. It's going to cover at a very high level just one of the capabilities. If you'd like to know more, we're always more than happy to kind of dive into specifics with you. But Push, over to you.
Perfect. Thanks, Vidar. Good to meet everyone here. Happy to be here. As Vidar mentioned, my name is Pushkal. You guys can just call me Push. And what I'm going to do right now is talk more from an operational perspective about how Avo works. First, we're going to go over how we've designed our program to actually operate. And we function under 3 major pillars. The first pillar here is the planning and design phase. So this was primarily focused on because we wanted to make sure that companies and QA teams had a chance to actually visualize and get a virtual representation of what their business flows look like, right? So the mind map of the design phase is essentially a test design phase where teams can go in and design what exactly the testing workflow for whatever application that they're testing on is broken down by. So we have modules, scenarios, screens, and test cases. They work in a sort of hierarchy structure, and essentially, like I mentioned earlier, they help you visualize the act case, but also what the flow, your business flow looks like. And we'll see an example of this during the demo as well. The second stage is the automation and execution stage, right? So we use an intelligent core engine that is downloaded onto your machine as a lightweight agent. And we use it to essentially provide no-code automation, no-code test automation. So we have both an Avo Genius offering, which you'll see in a minute, as well as the ability to configure, edit, update, and maintain those test cases seamlessly. You can go in and play with the elements. You can go in and play with each of the different test steps. And then we also have very powerful and robust execution suite. If you'd like to know more about that in particular, just reach out to us. I'm more than happy to walk you through it. But essentially, we offer stuff like parallel executions as well as pool executions from a elastic execution grid. All our licenses work concurrently as well. So some beautiful stuff happening with being able to schedule and execute your test cases to provide the most optimum, fastest way to go about your automation. And then finally is the dashboard and reporting, but essentially this is just a great way for us to keep track of the different tasks that are assigned to people on your team, view the results of your test cases, what passes, what fails, the status of each test case and each execution run. And then overall also just, it allows user roles like test managers to keep an eye on the progress of, let's say, a particular regression or the development of a particular test case, test suite that you guys are working on. Just on the next slide, you'll see an example of some of the different technologies that we work with. There we go. So on the right-hand side, essentially what Vidar mentioned this earlier as well, what we're trying to offer is agile quality assurance testing, right? What that means is we help test on a whole bunch of different platforms and services. We integrate with pretty much every major DevOps tool that you could have in your arsenal right now. And then we have no-code test design and test management. And I'll walk through all of these. One of the major advantages of Avo is really the fact that we can cut across a whole bunch of different technologies, right? So that helps you get true end-to-end test coverage, especially as an enterprise. So everything from your ERP systems like SAP and Oracle, even your CRMs like Salesforce, Microsoft 360 Dynamics, but also platforms such as just regular old web, mobile, and API. The fact that we test across all of these seamlessly in an end-to-end flow is incredibly powerful when you stop and think about the sort of advantages it gives you with pure test coverage, but also the efficiency in terms of automating all the different business flows that you might have in your environment. The middle is pretty generic, but it's essentially an indicator of the different CI/CD integrations, as well as test cycle management integrations that we provide. Some of the things that are critical, I think, for pretty much any operation, any organization to properly operate in 2022. And on the right-hand side, I'm just going to quickly go through some of our major test design and test management functionalities, and you'll actually see an example of our Avo Genius functionality in a minute. But the visual test planning essentially talks about the mind maps section that I mentioned earlier, right? So it helps you test, design, and plan sort of what your business flows look like. We also have about 1,500 plus pre-built functions, which are essentially keywords that you can go and use if you want to fine-tune those test cases that you make. For SAP users, we have a pre-built library as well. We call it a SAP accelerator, and essentially what it is we have, I think, a few hundred, more than 500 pre-built test cases as a library that you can just input straight into your Avo application and get started testing from day one. And then again, we have smart scheduling and distributed testing. I talked about this earlier when it came to sort of our smart elastic execution grid and how we can help run and streamline the scheduled executions that you guys might have to make sure that the parallel executions that any organization wants to run, to make sure that your test cases are executing faster or your regressions are finishing in shorter periods of time. That's one of the major advantages of that. Moving on to the next slide, I think what we're going to do right now is just walk you through a video of a demo, which is our Avo Genius. And we've chosen Salesforce to show you some of its capabilities, mainly because, one, Salesforce is notorious for being a little tricky to create an automated test on because of the number of dynamic elements, drop-down menus, the fact that there are a whole bunch of different changes that happen on every single screen. Avo can do it. Avo Genius especially, you'll see right now, can do it. So this is the start page. When you log into Avo, this is what you're going to see. On the right-hand side is the different projects that you're working on. And if you were a test manager, you'd actually be able to assign the different, you'd actually be able to assign different tasks to people on your team. On the left-hand side, you'd see just a bunch of quick options for you to be able to navigate to different pages or functionalities on the Avo platform. For example, you got your quick integrations or reporting. But what we're going to do right now when you hit play, Lisa, is we're going to see what the Avo Genius functionality looks like. So once Avo Genius kicks up, essentially what you have to do is put in your project details, right? So select the project you're working on, the module, the scenario that you're working on, which app, and then you got to input the actual navigation URL, right? So we're doing a simple web application here, and it's a Salesforce application on our own sandbox. Select your browser, hit enter, and you're good to go. Avo Genius immediately pops up on the right-hand side. What you see right there is actually Avo Genius running in the background. It's automatically navigated to the URL. On the left-hand side, you see the actual application that you're working on. The red box right there highlights the different elements that are selected. And as you can see, as it's highlighting each of those individual elements, they're getting recorded on our Avo Genius application on the right-hand side. We've inputted a whole bunch of different variables. So you've seen text fields, you've seen text boxes, and you've seen clickable interactions with the actual application. As we go through now, you'll actually see how Avo is able to interact with dynamic elements, with text boxes, with drop-down menus, and it does it all seamlessly. Every single one of those actions is recorded. The recordings are editable, and I think that's something that's super critical to remember, is that you can always go in, make a change, edit, and update and maintain your test cases super easily. The one other thing that I did want to bring your attention to is on the Avo Genius side, on the right-hand side right there, you see that there are two different screens already recorded. Screen's very simple. It's just which web application, which page of the web app, for example, you're currently working on, and then each of the single different test steps under that particular page that's gotten recorded. You'll now see Avo interact with more elements on the screen. It's actually smart enough to even, like I mentioned earlier, interact with drop-down menus and pop-ups that come in as well. So you're running through a very simple Salesforce process here just to make sure that the operation works the way you need it to. And you won't be able to see it right now, but on the right-hand side, as you're interacting with each element on the screen, it's still getting recorded in the background. You'll see the status change of the Salesforce application, which means everything's working as planned. And as it updates, all of these different features, elements, and functionalities are getting recorded in the background. One of the things that I did want to bring your attention to on our Avo Genius slide, and you can just about see it right there, is that the test data and some of the variables are also getting recorded. That's super critical. So when you want to run back your execution, it'll use the same test data and variables. Something else that it can do is that you can go in and actually do some data-driven testing with this. So if you input dynamic variables, for example, you can test, for example, different username combinations, different password combinations, and stuff like that. Now we're just going to hit log out, and the recording of our test case will be done in a second. Once we hit stop, the test case is officially over. Just confirm it. What we're going to show you right now is a mind map. So I mentioned this earlier, but it's essentially, like I said, a visual representation of the exact business workflow that we just went through. This is something that you don't really see anywhere else. What it does is it lets you visualize exactly what your test case should look like. You can go in there and make changes as well. We're going to come back now and just very quickly execute. And you'll see once we hit that execute button, every single aspect that was recorded, every single test step, including the variables, is going to get automatically inputted. So right now, Avo is just doing its thing and it's executing the test case live in front of you. The speed of the execution obviously will depend on the number of threads that you've assigned to it, etc. But essentially what you can see right now is it is completely automated, and you can schedule this execution, like I mentioned earlier, to run at any given point. So let's say you have a huge list of test cases that you want to execute every single day before coming into the office. You could hypothetically start it at 4 a.m. and then be ready with all the execution results at 9 a.m. when you walk in. We're just going to give this a minute to go through every single one of the steps that we recorded earlier, and you can verify that every single step was recorded and the actions are being performed in obviously the exact same order that it was recorded on, including interacting with pop-up windows, interacting with the drop-down menus, as well as all of the different dynamic elements on the page itself that were recorded in your original test case. As we're going through this, I just wanted to bring up another point, and Vidur mentioned this earlier. One of the critical reasons that this type of automation is so important is when it goes to speed to market, right? You have very quick release cycles, and the ability to make sure you have test cases in a whole repository of it that you can constantly automate as a regression is extremely beneficial to pretty much any company looking to speed up and increase the quality and output of their automation. Now, once your test case is done, it's as simple as that. It's boom, over. You've successfully executed that quickly an entire test case. So we've gone through in less than 6 minutes, created a very simple workflow from scratch and executed it from scratch. That's how simple Avo makes test automation. One of the critical things that I did want to talk about right now was, if we could go back to the slides. Some of the advantages, right? So very quickly, this obviously helps massively with automation coverage, and I mentioned this earlier. It's not just about the fact that we can automate very easily, but we do it across a whole host of different technologies. The rate of delivery obviously increased that much faster. Your regression effort is greatly reduced because you just have an easy to maintain whole host of test cases that you can just use to run your regressions. Your cost savings have reduced, and then your defect injection rate is reduced because the more often you're able to run the test cases, the more often you're able to find some of those bugs and some of those issues with your actual deployment and release. That was a quick overview on a very, very niche capability that we had, but we wanted to show you guys because it really highlights some of the technologies that we're working with here. On the next slide, you'll see we're more than happy to walk you through a lot of the other benefits and features and functionalities that we have at Avo. There we go. If you guys would like an extended 14-day trial, just reach out to us, more than happy. And if you'd like to request a demo as well, where we can dive into not just Avo Genius, but everything else that we have to offer, more than happy to do that as well. You guys can request a demo on this. I think we're going to leave the screen up for a couple of minutes just so that you guys can grab some of this information or scan those QR codes if you need it. And given that, I think we're ready to move on to a little bit of Q&A.
Yep, excellent. Thank you, Push.
Perfect.
All right, so let's jump into the Q&A session. We've got a couple of minutes to give you to just submit your question. This is the most important part of our webinar because we'd love to hear from you. We've shared a lot of information at this point, and so we're happy to just kind of stand by as you submit your questions. So we'll give you just a couple seconds to get those questions ready and we'll jump right in. One of our first questions is already, can we get the slides? Yes, you will get the slide content from just as soon as we're ready to package up the webinar. The webinar itself will be sent out to everyone who attended the webinar, and you'll have a copy of the slides as part of that.
Good question.
Yeah, good question. All right. And we've got another question from Banu. Where will Avo be running from? So where would, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Banu, with this question, when you say where will Avo run from, do you mean, does the test automation run on-prem? Yeah, I figured that's what you meant. Excellent. Thank you for clarifying that. So Banu wants to know, is it on-prem or is cloud-based or is it both?
Yeah, I can take that. So we offer the solution primarily in the cloud. However, for some of our financial services clients, they want an on-prem deployment. We can do that as well. On the clouds, we can deploy essentially on any of the major cloud providers, Oracle, AWS, Microsoft, and Google. We also do private cloud or public cloud. Our standard offering is on the cloud, but again, if you'd like to see anything on-prem, more than happy to work on those deployment models as well.
Excellent. All right. And Banu says thanks. And then we have another question about, does Avo Assure provide self-healing for changes in the UI?
Yeah, I'll take that. Yes, we do. We don't rely obviously on X and Y coordinates. We are using computer vision technology to pick up the objects. So as the objects move around on the screen and have different resolutions, we do have an element of self-healing that takes care of those breaks in the UI or changes to the UI without essentially having us redo or recapture the objects on the screen. So we definitely have a capability around self-healing, and we continue to make that capability broader and broader over the next 3 or 4 releases.
Great. By the way, Banu says thank you for answering his question. And then another one is, can you elaborate on in-sprint testing?
Sure. I know Pushkal didn't get to show too much of the demo. Just in the interest of time, we only wanted to show one feature, the Genius capability. But we have a whole host of other capabilities, one of which is in sprint automation. And fundamentally, what we're doing is allowing a user to create entire scripts with placeholder objects. So as the UI comes in, you can simply merge the new UI with your agile dummy UI essentially. But once that's done, you can essentially execute everything in real time. And that's at a very high level how it works.
Yeah.
Happy Lisa to kind of go into more detail live with whoever does that question.
Awesome. Excellent. Okay, and then we have another question. Can you explain how much automation you cover? Is it functional testing and non-functional testing? What levels of automation do we cover as far as software is concerned?
We do,
And so
I can take that. We do just end-to-end.
Go for it.
Yeah, I was just saying we do end-to-end functional, so we don't do non-functional testing, but yeah.
Yeah,
Awesome.
we do also a little bit of accessibility testing, but like Pushkal said, the focus is really on functional API testing. Yeah.
Great. And another question is, can they use Avo for API testing if they don't have a UI?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
They can. We can. Mm-hmm. All right. Give it a couple more minutes. I think those are the questions we have so far. All right. Okay, Jason, I'd rather give our audience some time back. I know everybody appreciates getting a little bit of time back. So back over to you. I suggest we close at this point. And let's go ahead and do the wrap up.
Sorry, I hit the wrong button. I think we actually did have one last question come in real quick, since we have a little bit extra time. This one's from Basil. It says, what does Avo's back-end engine consist of? Is it Selenium or is it something else?
Good question. It's a proprietary backend which we have built. We do have a certain amount of open source in the product for certain different capabilities which you can turn on and turn off based on the security needs of our clients. But it is a proprietary algo on the back end, which fundamentally powers the object capture and the execution engines for us.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, sorry, didn't mean to jump the gun there, Annalisa, but I did want to get that question.
Completely fine. Would love to take more questions. Of course, all of our attendees are more than welcome to reach out right away, or as they think of other things. We, of course, are also going to be reaching out to everybody to send them the material and to hopefully continue conversations. For sure. Yeah, and like Annalisa said, if you do have any questions come up, feel free to reach out to the team. They'll be happy to answer anything you've got. For me here at DZone, I would like to encourage you guys to check out our website at dzone.com/webinars. We have a ton of other great webinars on really important topics for developers today. We've got on-demand webinars, we've got past webinars, we've got a whole bunch of upcoming events for you to check out. So definitely encourage you to head over there and see what we've got. Thank you, Annalisa and Vidur and Push for joining us here today. This is a really great topic, really important for all of us to make sure we're getting out the best software that we can to help our customers, right? On that note, I think we're going to go ahead and call it a day. So thank you all so much for joining us. Enjoy the last 15 minutes to go maybe get some coffee or something. Have a wonderful rest of your week, and we'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.